When I look back at my career, the lowest times in my career or even personal life is when I fell into victim story and I let go of my power.
Right.
For example, there's a expression, there's an expiration date on blaming your parents. So let's say hypothetically you had the quote unquote worst parents in the world. There comes a time where you cannot no longer use that as an excuse for where you are today. There has to be some sort of letting go of the past. And even Ireland was colonized, of course, similar to the Philippines. There comes a time where we almost have to let go of the past as well. Like horrible things happen to our countries in terms of being colonized by a greater power. And there comes an expiration date that you can't blame what happened 300 years ago for the problems today. You can examine it to see, okay, where the root causes. But I love what you said. We always have to land in a place where people feel empowered. We can't have that, and I'll use this Filipino phrase, wala akong magagawa, mahirap kami. That's heartbreaking when you go into the slum areas in Metro Manila and Metro Cebu and other cities where they have this mentality. And that's the victim mentality that holds people back from being empowered, making decisions that are actually going to make things better.
Welcome and good day, everybody. Today we have a very special guest. He only came from about, looking at your background, maybe that's about 5 kilometers away. But I think you're all curious to know about where Mike Grogan is from. And he's definitely going to talk to us about something that, maybe it's what they call an unconscious bias. It's our own culture. It's our old selves. And I think we all know, regardless of culture, that usually the biggest enemy is ourselves. And that's something we all have to figure out. So today we have Mike joining us. And I'll ask Mike to introduce himself because I'm sure he's much better at it than I am. Mike?
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. A mini introduction to me. Well, my name is Mike, ako si Mike, nakatira ko dito sa Pilipinas. I'm the CEO of Kaizen Leadership Asia, and I believe that we will see a first world Philippines in our lifetime, and that's why I'm here. That's why gusto kong manatili dito sa Pilipinas. And even though there's madaming problema and minsan magulo sa labas, I have so much hope and optimism about this country, and I love this country, and I'm here to stay. The same with my team as well. So I'm really excited that we get to spend some time together this afternoon or this morning, depending on where people are listening to this.
I'm enthused, I'm elated that you're actually very positive about our country, because admittedly, even me, at times I'm not, I just feel like I'm just giving up and leaving. Okay. So it's definitely crossed my mind. But tell us a little more about where you're from. When did you come here? How long have you been here?
Yeah, I came here in 2015. Oh no, 2014 was my first trip, but 2015 is when I moved full time. And I'm Taga Ireland ago. I'm from Ireland. I've lived in 7 different countries around the world. I've been out of my own country for almost 16 years. And I never, ever expected to be 8+ years in the Philippines. I thought maybe 6 months, pagsulit, test lang. But then I fell in love with this country and its potential and its people. So I want to stay here. I think yes, there's problems that we need to address, but I really believe that the problems are solvable. It's not about natural resources. It's not about geopolitics. The solutions are within the Filipino, and that's why I'm here. And I just seeing Filipinos succeed. It's the greatest feeling. Your country has given so much value to the world. Now I feel, as we look forward to the next 50 years, I think the Philippines can become a first world Philippines built on Filipino values. Bayanihan, walang iwanan. This is not copy paste what we do in the Western countries. Yes, we can learn from the West, Japan, Singapore, but a really unique namumukutangi among mga Filipino. So I'm really optimistic, even though some people think I'm a bit baloo crazy to be so optimistic, and maybe some people say naive. But as we will go through in this conversation, I believe all the problems we face, the vast majority, are things that are within our control. So that's why I'm optimistic about this country.
Let's start with that. what is it that you saw in us to make you say, wow, this is such a great place? I won't deny that we've got beautiful beaches, you've got all the resources in the world. I won't deny that. Well, but then you also know we've got all kinds of other issues involved. Okay. But
Yeah.
what is it that made you say this is the place?
Well, it's I guess it's to the potential and kakayahan. That's so exciting to know that, wow, if we can hit that potential, wow, we can do so much good in this country. We can, you know, no longer be a developing, emerging economy, be one of the powerhouses of Southeast Asia. So when I saw extreme poverty and I saw the challenges that everyday Filipinos experience, especially with mass immigration of the OFWs, I was also heartbroken by the suffering that Filipinos have to experience today and in the not too recent past.
Right.
And it was kind of heartbreaking to see that how the country has got itself in a situation from being one of I think the second strongest economy in Asia at one time to significantly dropping down on the competitive index and losing business, losing opportunities to their neighbors. And so it is heartbreaking to see that. But what gives me hope is the strengths of the Filipino can overcome these challenges. We talked about Bayanihan. We talked about Kapatiran, Walanginan. So I believe that there is 100 more positive stories about the Philippines than there is negative stories. For every one negative story, there's 100 positive stories. But if you just scroll social media every day or look at the TV every day, you're not getting positive stories. 99% of the time, you're getting negative stories. So I understand why so many people kulang ang pag-asa nila para sa Pilipinas, para sa bayan, because they're flooded with so many negative stories. But I believe that, once again, for every one negative story, there's 100 positive stories. So overall, I think this country is going this direction. Whereas maybe other countries around the world, especially in developed economies, it's nakakabato. Yes, they have obviously a lot of first world privileges, but here it's exciting, and I see so much opportunity for the next generation of Filipinos. So that's why I want to be here, because it's so exciting compared to going back to Europe or US or other developed countries that I spend time in. That's a long-winded answer. So,
well, right now, even the U.S. looks a little, when you look at the social media there, this is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell by my age. I was a teenager in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Okay? And I can assure you that in the 70s, there's no way that I would have believed that, Russia would collapse.
Hmm.
And there's also no way that I ever believed that there would be a rebellion in the U.S. Ever. For me, it was an impossibility, but yet it happened. Okay, so look at all of this. Okay, so let's try to pick on these one by one. What I like, the first comment you made is there's a lot of potential, and I'll agree with that. And in my life, I've had to turn around two businesses, okay, because they're on the brink of financial disaster, if you want to say.
Mm.
And usually when the case is like that, when the potential gap is huge, leaps happen very quickly. Okay, like I can improve by up to 60, 70, sometimes even 100% in a very short time. But then when it comes closer to the higher target, it becomes a little more difficult. Okay, but that's a normal growth pattern, if you want to say. And since I also am a leadership facilitator, one very famous quote, I forgot who said it, please forgive me. He goes that, leaders make ordinary people do extraordinary things. Mm-hmm. And what I point out there, it's not the ordinary to the extraordinary, it's the people that's the key word. Yep. Because the only way that you can go beyond what you can do is with people. You cannot do it alone. Yep. And that's my first question for you. And this is a little quote from my dad. He told me a long time ago, he said, son, if you put 3 Filipino men in a room, you'll walk out with 5 associations. Okay, so in general, maybe our sense of working together, in fact, we've been accused of having crab mentality. Okay, that really helps drag us down. Now, if that is one of our weaknesses, which I think it is, what are your typical approaches to counter that? Or do you have any stories about overcoming that tendency?
So we work with mostly global companies, but sometimes we work with local companies here in the Philippines. And before we engage with them, we always kind of listen to them first in terms of, well, how are you, Mr. Leader, Mrs. Leader, describing the problems? And we've done this like with, at this stage, hundreds of companies from multiple industries, and it's essentially the same problem over and over again that we hear. Sometimes people use different buzzwords, but it's the same problem in terms of their people are not speaking up, people are not taking ownership, there's no accountability, there's no follow through, departments are not collaborating together. And it's obviously sometimes there's different ways to measure that. You can measure that through attrition, you can measure that to productivity, stakeholder or customer satisfaction levels. But essentially, mindset is that one word problem that almost every organization, now there is outliers that are at a different level, but I would say 95% of companies, it's mindset. It's their biggest pain point, mindset. So the good news is that when we do from our own experience here of trial and error, we found that unless you get to the root causes of where that so it's like an onion, a cebullas. Yes, you have the limiting behaviors that surface, like for example, team leader or team member not speaking up in a meeting, not saying, no, I disagree, or I need help, or sharing a problem that they're aware of with others, keeping quiet. Let's say that's the limiting behavior that's holding back that particular individual. You can't just tell people, oh, you need to speak up more. You need to be more vocal. That's not getting to the root cause. So what we do in our programs, what we have found to be effective, I'm sure other companies as well have seen this success, is peel back the layers to get to the real root of this. And what we found, and I guess this is the good news, and it's also a bit some not so good news. The good news is all of these problems have nothing to do with work. It just happened to be that work is the place where these problems are surfacing. Vast majority of these problems go back to childhood. The root causes, the origin stories that they pick up, and the origin of that is in their child and how they were raised by their parents or their caretakers. And many times you have to even go deeper, what we call intergenerational trauma of the Filipino, of being a colonized nation. There's baggages that have been passed down from generation to generation. And some of those baggages have been good, as in positive values, and others have been limiting, like crab mentality, like a fear to speak up, truth against power. I mean, we all know the Ningas Kagon and Manana, but most of this is stuff that was picked up in childhood. But the good news is, once again, I'm an optimism by heart, is it's good that we identify that this all comes from, well, most of it comes from childhood. But the good news is anything that can be learned can be unlearned. So what we've seen great success is in creating a safe environment for these leaders or for these team members to actually, and it doesn't happen overnight, but over maybe a period of time, it could be 3 months, it could be 3 weeks, it all depends on the person. In a group setting, you can create a safe environment for people to go back to their childhood, identify where they picked up these stories, and almost begin the process of letting go, of making the decision, yes, by inihan, this Filipino value, I want to pass this down to my children. But the crab mentality, no, it stops with me. I'm not passing this belief down to the next generation. So I've seen amazing, inspiring Filipinos that go through these programs and give feedback to me and my team going, wow, this has changed my life. And the biggest benefit of this is not just work. Hindi lang sa trabajo. It's stories about how leaders and sometimes just even individual contributors have been applying these ideas in their personal life, making peace. I know, once again, I'll say something controversial. I know that obviously Filipino, there's a perception that harmony in the family is important. But unfortunately, we know from a lot of the studies, we're also hiding some unethical behavior in our families. And a lot of Filipinos suffer from, if you want to use the word, toxic family members, exploitive family members. It's such a hot topic, but in everyday conversation, people don't talk about it because there's so much shame around it. But give people a safe place to talk about these things, you can create so much healing. So that's what gives me hope that these problems, yes, they're severe. And if you don't solve them, it's going to create a lot of massive pain and missed opportunity. But given the right environment with the right support, we can really get to the root causes and replace these limiting behaviors with empowering behaviors. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of examples of Filipinos who are living and breathing that. And Paul, I'm probably speaking to you as well. I'm sure that you and your own journey had to do a lot of unlearning. Even myself, a lot of unlearning in my culture about, yes, I need to hold this on, but no, this negative belief, I need to let go of this. So that's what gives me hope. Anything that can be learned can be unlearned.
Well, what did they say about learning? Usually the biggest stumbling block is unlearning, not the learning.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's fascinating because your approach sounds very much like a psychologist, because psychologists go to the past.
Yeah.
Okay. A coach and a mentor will probably look forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an interesting approach because it's something that I mean, I don't feel qualified because I'm not a psychologist. Okay, no way. All right. So maybe it's something I've tiptoed around and never really focused on, kind of thing. But usually when I work with a situation, I literally give them the words to say. Okay, and I just, some of my favorite lines, I said, if you're afraid to talk to your boss, you better tell him you're afraid to talk to him.
Yeah.
Like for example, Mike, you're my boss, say, Mike, I'm terrified to talk to you. Tell him. Can he fire you for that? And I asked them. So that at least helps put them in the right direction. Okay, and then explain to them why you're terrified for whatever reason it is. And I work with a boss and say, hey, look, if you hear these words, he's trying to tell you something, and for Christ's sake, shut up. Okay, just listen. Okay. All right. That's why they interact. But your approach is fascinating simply because it's something I never really wanted to look into, because for me it was more of a psychological kind of science and discipline, looking into the past and trying to fix it. But you are right. Several of us have this maybe toxic family members, but at the same time, and this is something that maybe I don't know if you've experienced it, but in the 50s and 60s, you pretty much, you went home, your grandmother was there, your uncle was there, your cousins were there. In short, you had an extended family at home. And now you find yourself in a little condo, and Schumart condo that's 25 square meters, and you're all alone, and you have a problem. Who the hell do you talk to? Okay, usually with the extended family, there was somebody you could sit down and talk to. All right, and you could work those things out. But included there was the toxic family member, so forth and so on. So maybe these are all, how would you say, features of our landscape, if you want to say. Okay. But let's continue. So based on your experience again, among the difficult, how would you say, cultural traits that we have, which are the most difficult ones that you've worked with, or are still trying to figure out, or still trying to fix?
Well, one of the big ones is conflict resolution. That the culture in the Philippines is about avoiding conflict to the point where healing is not really healing. It's kind of band-aid, and the root cause of the trauma between groups is never addressed, or individuals. And many times that has massive negative consequences in an organization. Obviously, that results in people not collaborating and people blaming and shaming each other. And it's all, so that's a huge thing that's holding back Filipinos, I believe, is the avoidance of conflict, and how to do conflict or misunderstandings in a productive way. So I agree with you, what you said earlier. Like, yes, we do. Sometimes we go back into the past to talk about cultural root causes, and that can be helpful, helping people kind of, we use the phrase melting, help them understand where the seed was planted many years ago in their childhood. For example, I worked with one executive who missed out on a promotion, and he was very frustrated and angry and disappointed and very close to quitting the company because he felt that he deserved the promotion, but he was stepped over, or stabbed in the back. The buzzwords that people use.
There was a favorito. Let me guess. There was a favorite person. Okay.
The Padrino system. I mean, I know what it's like, but I told him, okay, this may be true. Let's look at the data. Let's look at some of your 360 feedback that he recently went through. And when we read the 360 feedback together, there was some voices there that was saying that he was quite aggressive sometimes, not physically aggressive, but always wanting to win, always wanting to compete, always wanting to arguing with other departments. And essentially, where I'm going with this is he got to realize that, oh, maybe some of my behaviors were actually holding me back from getting promoted. Because obviously, the more you climb up the corporate ladder, the more you need to be effective. You need to be at relationship building. Yes. It's not necessarily about the technical skills at that level, but it's about building relationships. And here, the 360 feedback was very clear. Mr. Executive, you're very aggressive sometimes, and you're actually damaging relationships because you want to win so much. And I asked them this question, like, where is this hunger to win so much? And then he went around in circles and he wasn't able to answer. So I asked him this question, and I'll ask this for your listeners. When you were a child, whose love did you crave the most? Was it your father or was it your mother? Now, that's a super heavy question, and I'll explain where I'm going with this one. For this particular executive, his answer straight away was my father. And I asked him, okay, why did you pick your dad? Well, and then he was able to open up that he never felt good enough for his father. His father never said, I love you, I'm proud of you. So, words like that. And he never heard that. So the son created a survival story in his head as a teenager. Okay, in order to be worthy of my father's love, I need to be the best at everything I do. That was a survival story that the son adopted. Now, we have no evidence to say the father didn't love his son. Obviously, my dad doesn't use words of affirmation. It's very common in fathers, especially from traditional families. So there's no criticism over the father. But it's just amazing to see a survival story that was created as a teenager actually now blossoms in your career and actually holds you back. So he was being competitive is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to want to win, to want to always be the best. But there comes a time where that's actually hurtful. That's harmful. Like, imagine with your wife, Angasawamo, you always I want to go to this restaurant. No, and he was, as we were talking this through, he was like, oh yeah, that's created conflict in my marriage with my children as well. I'm always trying to be right. So essentially through this whole process, he was able to let go of this belief that you always need to win at everything. He was able to compromise and collaborate more. And that was 5 years ago. This is a kind of a story from 5 years ago. He was able to get promoted, I think 3 times since that, because he was able to figure out this one thing. And I guess that's the good news for the Philippines. It's not like 10 things that need to change. Many times for each one of us, it's just 1 or 2 beliefs that need to be revisited, relooked at, examined, done some surgery with. It's not 20 things. Many times just 1 or 2. And once you get to that root cause and you replace it with an empowering belief, that's where great things can happen. So I just want to compliment what you said already, because it's not just about going into the past. It's also what's the new empowering behavior that I need to practice in order to what we call the first part melting. The second part would be freezing, building up the new habit 1% better every day.
What's funny is, especially for people are entering it, even supervisory roles initially, managerial roles, and this is also why we have business. Okay, they understand the managing part of it. They do, and chances are they've even been trained how to do this. Do the reports. This is what you count. This is what you observe. But what we have found, and I'm sure you know this, it's they don't quite understand the roles that they have as they move up. And even if a person moving up into a higher executive role, his role is not operational anymore. Yeah. And sometimes they forget that. Okay, they still get stuck in the operational mode, and they should be, making friends with the finance director, making friends with the HR director, figuring out things so that eventually they'll have to work. But one of the bigger challenges I ran into, and this was funny, it's a local conglomerate. Okay, they're international. And the L&D group approached me and they said, sir, we need your help. I go, oh, what's going on? I said, at the moment, our directors are not working together. They said, okay. And the way they're set up, there were geographical directors and functional directors. Like there was a director for China, director for Southeast Asia. And then, of course, there were directors for finance, HR, all that kind of stuff. And then I said, okay, let's do this. The next time you go into a MANCO, management committee meeting, just sit there and tell me what's being rewarded and what's being punished.
Mm.
Okay. And then I think they already knew the answer without even having to attend the meeting. Okay. They said, oh, okay. And this is quite common. Not only here in the Philippines, it's that, if you look at the way the rewards work in organizations, they reward individual performance per division or however they're divided.
Mm.
And sometimes that can lead to, I don't want to compete with you. I mean, I'm competing with you. Okay, but I want to win the big prize, if you want to say, and that's that's not only Pinoy. Okay, I think that's pretty much everywhere. Okay, but if you had that situation, how would you work through it?
Well, when I look at myself, my own career, both when I was working in corporate and being an entrepreneur with Kaizen Leadership Asia, the number one thing that's held me back is myself, my blind spots. My biggest pain when I look back when I didn't ask for help sooner.
Right.
So I think it takes a lot of courage for an organization, a leader of a team, to ask help from a third party. Huge. I would put it probably less than 10%. And for those 90% that don't want help, that's okay as well. Sometimes it's a season of life as well. I'm being more empathetic to people that don't want help. And we can think of our family members as well. Becomes even more personal when you have a family member that you deeply care about, but in the season they're currently in right now, they're refusing help from you and from others, etc. So it can be heartbreaking, but we have a limited number of hours. We have a limited number of, energy level.
Right.
And, the kind of analogy of, the helicopter and going to rescue people that are trapped in the ocean. You can only rescue those that swim towards you. So I think it's very courageous that, with the example that you gave, at least someone within the L&D team or the leadership team thought that it was insightful to bring in an outsider. And many times the benefit of having an outsider, you can just they can help you see your blind spots faster. And it can be painful. The blind spot pill is hard to swallow because ang ego ko ay malaking kaaway ko. So I get it myself because I like, there's a season in my life I did not want any help. And that holds us all back. So I think when it comes to growth, I like to think of it in seasons. And if the person is not in the season for help, I think you have to walk away, no matter how big the need is. If kapag sarado ang utag nila, game over.
Well, actually, that's the same guiding principle when it comes to conflict resolution. If you're not ready to resolve the conflict, I won't talk to you. I'll talk to you later.
And many times it's not worth it. That was one of the best advice I got when it comes to conflict. Mike, is it worth it? Like my mentor gave me that. Is it worth to kind of fix this relationship? And many times the answer was no.
Most of the times it's no.
Yeah, puede.
Most of the time it's no. I did that. The last class I did for conflict resolution, it was hilarious. I gave them the steps, I gave them everything, and then one of the final tests, if you want to say, it was a simple scenario where, just let's say Mike asked me for help one day because he needed to complete a project, and I did. I volunteered. I helped Mike out. I extended my hours by 4 hours just to help Mike complete his project. So he did a great job. So my thinking, Mike owes me one. Okay. So then I found myself in a similar situation. I told Mike, I really need your help. I need you to finish this also. I need your help to finish this. And you promised to me. Okay. So I went home, went to sleep. When I got back, I saw Mike asleep on the table. Okay. And his work was only 50% done. And the report was due in 2 hours. I said, what do you do? And the guy said, I'll kill Mike. I said, no, that's not the answer. I go, that won't solve your problem. The report isn't done. I go, and I was there. It was really, really funny. But most likely your sense of maybe righteousness takes over.
Oh, yeah. Like
I have to be right. So
the best examples are always personal. That's when we do our workshops. We allow people to bring in personal examples as well as work-related examples. And I put my hand up, like the hardest place for me to practice all these best practices in leadership is in my family, within my own marriage. Like many times, it's easy to blame ang asawa mo para lahat ang problema. Inosente ko, siya ang kasalanan. That's the easiest thing to do, but that's also the path of ang duwag, the cowards as well. Hopefully I'm not being controversial, but when one of my mentors gave me that advice, Mike, do you want to be right? Or do you want to be have the courage here to examine how you are contributing to conflict, how you are contributing to issues or stress that your wife is going through? So,
Right.
so that was a bit of humility for me to examine, let's say, a conflict that I have with my wife and see how am I contributing to this? Like, where am I malinga kala? What are my beliefs from my childhood? What am I don't know, my daddy issues or issues with my mother? How am I projecting that onto my wife? And it takes a lot of courage to do that. So I think of all the conflict I've been involved in, the proudest one is the resolving conflict with my wife, realizing that 9 times out of 10, her intentions are good. It's just that I'm creating disempowering story. And of course, being a husband and wife, you can always make that joke about, okay, I'm 49% in the wrong, you're 51% in the wrong. You know, you can fight over that 1%. Okay, I'm 51% this time. But it's to keep that, to always ask yourself, okay, how am I contributing to this person? And especially as a leader, the higher you go up, the less people you can blame. The easiest thing in the world to do is blame. And the most courageous thing to do is take 100% ownership. Okay, how am I contributing to this?
You know, when it comes to reflecting on yourself, and this I'm taking straight from Stephen Covey, and I discuss this a lot when I do problem solving and decision making. Okay, I said, you know, if you think the problem is out there, that very thought is the problem. Because when we do problem solving and decision making, it's hilarious because I'm sure you know the 5 whys, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of that. And the trick is it really is 5 whys, because by the time you reach beyond the 5th whys, it's most likely out of your control already. Yeah. You're blaming somebody else. Okay, so it can't be that. That's not the problem. Okay, it has to be something that you participate in. And you know, definitely for me, blaming is actually giving your power away.
Yeah.
You know, I blame Mike for everything. I'm just giving my power away because I'm the guy who's supposed to change it, not Mike.
When I look back at my career, the lowest times in my career or even personal life is when I fell into victim story and I let go of my power.
Right.
For example, there's an expression, there's an expiration date on blaming your parents. So let's say hypothetically you had the quote unquote worst parents in the world. There comes a time where you cannot no longer use that as an excuse for where you are today. There has to be some sort of letting go of the past. And even Ireland was colonized, of course, similar to the Philippines. There comes a time where we almost have to let go of the past as well. Like horrible things happen to our countries in terms of being colonized by a greater power. And there comes an expiration date that you can't blame what happened 300 years ago for the problems today. You can examine it to see, okay, where the root cause is. But I love what you said. We always have to land in a place where people feel empowered. We can't have that, and I'll use this Filipino phrase, wala akong magagawa, you know, mahirap kami. That's heartbreaking when you go into the slum areas in Metro Manila and Metro Cebu and other cities where they have this mentality. And that's the victim mentality that holds people back from being empowered, making decisions that are actually going to make things better.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's that blaming philosophy that goes around. And there was one class I was training, and then these are supervisors. I think it was their first leadership course. And one of them raised their hands. Is it always our fault? And I go, if it involves your people, yes. I just said straight out. Yeah. You're accountable for everything there.
And that's why leadership is the hardest job in the world. Effective leadership, like, is the loneliest job. It is because we have to swallow that human ego and say, yeah, I can't blame anyone. I have to take 100% ownership of whatever this team I'm responsible for.
You know, when I thought about that, because I'm sure you've heard the phrase, leadership is learned. And when I thought about what you said, I thought deeper and deeper about it. I came to the conclusion that leadership is actually innate. Because at the end of the day, leadership is a decision. You have to decide to do this crazy, whatever it is you're doing. But the question is, why did you decide like that? Did you learn that? Or was that just in you already? Okay, so that's why in my thinking, leadership is actually innate. Okay, everybody can learn to be a leader. There's another famous line that says, what is it? Leadership is not about a title. I'm sure you've heard that one. I said, but if you're given the title, you have an opportunity to be a leader. And you have to decide to be one or not.
Yeah.
And I said, if you decide not to be, just make sure I don't want the title. I'll give you back the extra money I got, the perks. I'll go back to being what I was.
Yeah.
But it really is quite fascinating. Now, another thing I'd like to talk about very quickly is your organization. You have Kaizen. Now, Kaizen is a word that's been kicked around a lot. It's very visible. But I also have this feeling that sometimes there's a great deal of misunderstanding about what it is.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's focus a little bit on that. And can you tell me more about exactly what is the essence of Kaizen and what are some of the misconceptions that are there?
Marami sa mamatay sa maling akala. Madaming maling akala. So I'll answer this question with the cover of my book. So this is one of the most popular books that I've written. And for me, the heart of this book is Kaizen. So Kaizen is a Japanese word. I think every Filipino knows what it means in terms of 1% better every day, small steps. It's not a Japanese philosophy. People say it comes from Japan. The word comes from Japan, but the thinking behind it is part of human developments from the year zero, whatever year that was started. Yes. Confucius talked about this, like 500 years before the birth of Christ, about small changes every day. Something happens in the brain that changes the wiring of the brain when we take action. I know. So for me, the reason why I love Kaizen so much, and we renamed the company Kaizen Leadership Asia, is not about tools. It's not about the Six Sigma concept. And I'm not kind of criticizing Six Sigma. I did the black belt training and I got a lot of value from it. But the biggest value of Kaizen is the thinking behind it in terms of making change sustainable. So going back to what I said earlier about, what are the biggest problems I hear companies talking about is, one, mindset change. And number two is if they create some change in their company, it's not sustained. It's hindi mitibay. And that's why I'm so obsessed with habits. Okay, how can we, when we work with groups of people, rather than just do a one-off training or a one-off experience or a one-off sermon, quote unquote, how can we, over a period of time, help people build winning habits? And I think the companies that are able to do that have a huge advantage because it becomes sustainable. Mm-hmm. And this, not just in the workplace, but also in your personal life, healthy habits, healthy eating habits, healthy sleeping habits. I think that's the key to sustainability. And so I want to help Filipinos fight Ningas Kagon, because that's, without Kaizen, Ningas Kagon rules. Ningas Kagon will keep you down and hold you back from Mangap Pangarap mo. So that's why I think Kaizen, I'm not saying it's the only way, but it's one effective, proven way to kind of get to your goals in the most sustainable way possible. So that's why we call the company Kaizen Leadership Asia.
No, thank you for the clarification. Okay, because I believe I have the correct grasp of what Kaizen is, although I've never really studied it in depth. But I've seen so many, interpretations of it that I'm not quite sure. So the clarification definitely helped. But you did mention something very, very important, because even typically the training, they'll say, so how much time do you have? I only have 4 hours. Kind of deal. And I joke, I can train you something in 4 hours, but I'll teach you just how to play tic-tac-toe. That's it. And so I'll respond like that. But and most of the programs do start with mindset, which I can completely understand. I definitely understand the importance of mindset. But going back to what Kaizen is about and all these micro habits, if you want to say, at the end of the day, your mindset is developed by repeated action. It's not just sitting there, I've got this great mindset. No, you got to do something over and over again. Yeah. And then the mindset sets in, the proper mindset, not the ningas kungan mindset. Okay. All right. And the proper mindset. And just simple example, you say you want to go to the gym. Okay, cool. So you go there, let's say typically what? After all the splurging in Christmas, you go to the gym, you see all the guys running to the gym to lose weight. And you see the person all decked out, and matching logos, got the latest gadgets and all stuff, looking really gung-ho. Then you have the shy people walking in and, the not so nice clothes, you look a little sheepish. But then after 3 months, the one with all the matching outfit is gone. But the other guy's still there. Why? Because he continued. Okay. That's what it boils down to. And so even now, when I do training, I focus a lot more on the behavior. Okay, so mindset is there. I'll tell you what the mindset, but let's try to get this changed first, because if you can do this over and over again, then you'll get that. Okay.
It's really, yeah, it's easier to act your way into a new type of thinking than the opposite. Try and think your way into a new
Right.
type of acting. So 100% align. And even once again, my proudest success stories is not when I'm facilitating or teaching others. It's actually myself. Like when I rewired my brain to exercise every day. And there's a time where I hated exercise and I failed so many times. But when I met it, my first thing I do every morning, and I started small, just 10 minutes every day. Then it
Right.
builds up to 15 minutes. And just using this science, which is not, I didn't make up this science, it's just how the brain is designed in terms
Right.
of small behaviors. But it really does work. Like, brushing your teeth. And madaming halimbawa, sa Pilipinas, brushing your teeth. Best dental healthcare in the world. Well, best dental hygiene in the world, I think, is in the Philippines.
Oh yes. Oh
In
yes.
terms of brushing your teeth, like bringing a toothbrush to work. I've never seen that anywhere except the Philippines.
After every meal, brush your teeth.
Yeah. So that's the good news. Filipinos have already like proven examples of how they can build good habits in their life. So this is just, okay, how can we bring the next layer so that you can, whatever particular goal that you're looking for, how can you now, what's the new behavior I need to practice for 5 minutes every day, 10 minutes every day, whatever it is.
Right,
So
right.
it can be learned.
Well, actually, who was it? I think it was Confucius, Lao Tzu, who said, "What is it? If you want to bring down a mountain, you start by taking away a pebble," or something like that. There was something like that. Or they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Those all reflective of the micro habit kind of thinking. But it's because on a personal note, okay, the school I went to was a Catholic school.
Yeah.
It was run by the brothers in Notre Dame. In fact, I had an Irish classmate even, okay, Dominic Coyle with a Y. And I had a senior, he was ahead of me a couple of years. His name was Paul Gukian. Okay, so Irish folk, they're nice guys. But yeah, Catholic school, and I never picked up the praying habit. Never. Okay, then COVID came around, and my wife, who was praying since childhood, she convinced me to start praying. Okay, so I started praying, and now it's me telling her to pray.
Wow.
And I said I didn't want to pray at the beginning. Okay, I did it because my wife said, "Let's pray." Okay, let's pray. But then again, the repetition built up the proper mindset.
Yeah.
To actually get it done. Okay, and in many ways, I appreciate the fact that you brought out the Ningas Kungon. Okay, because Ningas Kungon is the initial mindset that so easily fails, if you want to say. Okay, and the way to counter is get these habits going, so you get the proper mindset, the mindset that like, gosh, I missed a day at the gym, and you feel guilty. like I have to go 3 more times just because I missed one day, kind of thinking. But that's a key thing. Even I learned looking at the whole discussion that we're having.
Yeah.
But we should have coffee together. All right. Where do you stay, Makati? Or is that Ortigas?
BGC. I'm here in BGC.
Oh, BGC. All right. Okay, I can swing by there. We'll keep in touch. I'm in touch with you on LinkedIn anyway.
Yeah.
But Mike, before we go, is there anything you'd like to share with our viewers, or any events that you have, or maybe you have another book you want to share with us?
Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook as well, but on LinkedIn is where I'm more active. And I guess maybe the first 7 people that message me on LinkedIn directly related to this interview, I'm happy to send them a free copy of one of my books. So I love connecting with people, like-minded, open-minded leaders that are on a season for change, who want change for themselves, their company, their team. So please reach out to me. I obviously write free books. We do free webinars. We do free best practice tours. We have our 2-day boot camp in December 2023. But please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll share all of that information with people if they want to learn. And really happy to send a free book, because nothing gives me more joy than seeing Filipinos succeed. And this is the country of optimism. Niniwala ko sa Filipino, niniwala ko sa kakain dito. So I'm very grateful, Paul, for you and your team for giving me an opportunity to share and kwento ko, and look forward to connecting with people on LinkedIn, and hopefully kape tayo. We'll have a coffee as well, face to face sometime.
Absolutely. Where in BGC do you stay?
Near the Greenway, 1 McKinley Place. In this area.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn for sure.
Wonderful.
To all our viewers, if you enjoyed our conversation today, please do not forget to subscribe and like. Not only will you get access to a recorded version of this, but you'll also get access to our future conversations as well as our past interviews, which are all very, very insightful. For our next episode, we will be having Carla Nobleza, who will be talking about creating a safe place. And as always, learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas.